Again, Doug here from X Frames FPV, and today I've got a frame build and I've got an unboxing for you of the Hyperlite Floss 2. Now this is from pyrofliprc.com. This is from Serge over there, and the designer is Kebab FPV. And there's a lot of buzz around this, and primarily due to this guy. This is the original Hyperlite Floss, and this is a 5-inch, and this is an absolutely amazing frame. Super light, even with these 2206 motors on there. Full-size camera, I think we're right at 248 grams, all up minus battery. And it just is really a fast and surprisingly durable frame. Now, if you look here, you can see the arms are really small on this one, and so it made for a really light, but a lot of people thought in the beginning this was going to be something that's going to be fragile, and it just wasn't. I built quite a few for customers that have had some pretty heavy spills. We ran this one into a tree and it survived, so I expect nothing but the same for this Hyperlite Floss 2. I know that Kebab spent a lot of time fine-tuning and refining this thing, so let's get it on the table. We're going to lay everything out, get it really nice and easy explanation on how to build this for you. Okay, here we go. This is the unboxing or unbagging, as it would be, of the Hyperlite Floss 2. Got all the hardware for it. We'll go open that up and go through that. Nice little sticker. All the carbon fiber plates here and pieces. You can see here it is set up to run a top mounted battery. And then we've got a flosser. Well, FPV Kebab at the end of all of his videos recently has been saying don't forget to floss, and so he's adding this in there to help you not forget. So let's go through the hardware first of all. One thing I do really like is it does come with dampers, and it actually comes with 5 of them. And so if you damage one, you've got another one there as a backup. And then we've got the camera hardware here to mount the camera. This is to put on top of your stack. That way, if you would like to add something on top, you don't have to mount it right on top of your flight controller. And then here we have the different screws, M3 nuts, and standoff. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through and I'll measure everything out, and then we'll do the build side of it. This should be a pretty straightforward build because there's not a lot of intricacies to this frame as far as build goes. Is this a 16 or is it a 20? I'm not really sure here. Or maybe 18. Looks like it's a 16. Yep. So we've got 1, 2, should have 4 of those 16 millimeters. 2, 3, and 4. Okay. And then these are probably what, 12? Yeah, 12 millimeter. Should have 4 of those. And then I think there's some 5 millimeter. Yeah, these are 5 millimeter. There should be 4 of those. And then 6 millimeters, the rest of these. Okay, then as far as hardware, as far as nuts, they're all the same. They're all M3. And so I think there should be, what, 8 of these? Let's count them out here. There's 8, yeah. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and then the standoffs. Let's get a measurement on those. Yeah. You see that? 20 millimeter. Okay, so we've got our 16 millimeter screws here, M3s. We've got our 12 millimeters. We've got our 6 millimeter and our 5 millimeter. And then the standoffs and the M3 nuts. In here is the rest of the hardware, like I said, it has the dampers that are for soft, basically it soft mounts your flight controller. Okay, they include 5 of those. And then the standoffs. And then the screws here. So there's one more in there, and those are 5mm as well. Okay, so the cool thing is this is going to be available in a 4, a 5, a 5.5, and a 6-inch. And so that's going to be nice to have a 5.5 option. There's some pretty good 5.5 gym fan props out there. Okay, so let's get some measurements on some of these components here, or some of the frame pieces. It's going to be 3mm on the bottom plate. Looks like 2 on the top. Yeah. 2mm on the top plate. Arms are right at 4. Okay. And if you guys want to know what the width is, it changes a little bit, but right here in the middle where it is about 8.5. And so it's a pretty straightforward build. So we're going to lay out the frame here. And then we've each arm. And on the outside here, we're going to run the 12mm screws, which are here. And on the inside is going to be the 16mm screws, okay? So let's go ahead and start with the 12mm. And they'll come up through. Actually, I'm going to do it the other way here. This is the front, this is the back. So we're going to go ahead and start here. On the outside here. It's Monday, so I'm not as coordinated as I normally am, which is not very coordinated in general. So when you're not very coordinated, and then it's Monday, and in the morning, after a day of going to the beach and spending a crazy day with your kids, something about the beach that just absolutely wears you out. So I'll screw that in a little further. Okay. And we're going to I'm going to go ahead and do that on all 4 arms. Okay, there's the last one. And I just like to get them all kind of lined up so that when we put the next screw in, which is going to be this 12mm, it's also going to get a nut underneath. There's the front here. The front. I have a power driver, but when I'm building frames for the first time, especially, I don't like to use it. I like to kind of feel how things are going together, and as far as how they're fitting. I just think for me, it just helps to know how tight everything is. I like a frame to be nice and tight when you first build it. Now again with the 16mm, the front. So I'll line those holes up. You have to do a little finagling to get it through. Sometimes I just start it with the driver and start pushing it through. Okay. Go ahead and finish up the front one with the standoffs, which the standoffs will get the camera mounts. Sorry. Okay. There's the front, and we'll go ahead and snug up everything on there as well. Let's go ahead and build out the center stack. Now, on this, you can choose to run a 20 millimeter or a 30 by 30. Okay, and we're going to do basically the same here. 16 millimeter coming up through the bottom. I like that he went 3 millimeter on the bottom plate on this. You know, he's talked, when I say he, I'm talking about Kebab. He's talked quite a bit about engineering these things to break in a certain spot so that when you crash, the part that breaks is the easiest part to replace, which is going to be the arms. So he kind of engineers these, at least in the first one, and I'm assuming he did it with this one as well, to where if something breaks, it's going to be the arms, because you can replace an arm on this in a matter of, you know, a couple of minutes. Oh, got ahead of myself there. Okay, and then the standoffs simply go on top of the M3 nuts. And what this does is, you know, rather than using, you know, just the standoff to secure this, going with a longer standoff, what this does is these M3s are a lot stronger, and so it adds a point of strength right there. So that's, I really like that. Okay, let's go to the stack build here. So, you know, as we talked about, we have M5, M3 by 5, and M3 by 6. So we're going to use the M3 by 5 because there is just very little threads inside these dampers. And so the M3 by 5, we have about 2 millimeter threads in there. So then 3 millimeter of bottom plate, and then 2 millimeter thread sticking through. It should be perfect. Yeah. And you want to make sure, I mean, sometimes you do, you know, not a lot of people have maybe an M3 by 5 if you're putting these on something else. But what you do in that case is just, you can cut them down, because you don't want them to be too long, because it will damage the dampers. They'll just break off really easily, and things won't be tight. I mean, you want dampening right in that center section for the flight controller, but you don't want to, you don't want it to be shaking, because then it's kind of killing everything. So these are right at, I think, yeah, 5 millimeter. And these just screw right on top of here. Each one of them. You don't want to go too far. If you go too far, then you won't be able to get the nuts. We're just doing this. We don't have to do this now because, you know, depending on how you're going to run it, you may not even use these center standoffs, because you may only run your ESCs on the arm, and then the all-in-one in the center, all-in-one flight controller, and then that's it on your stack. So, you know, and then you may run a 4-in-1, and, you know, I mean, there's so many ways that we do it now. It used to be you primarily ran a PDB and then your flight controller, and that was it. Sometimes these fat fingers get in the way. I'm not going to cut that out, because that's something I deal with every day, especially on stuff that's really small like this. Get that screwed in. Okay, there's the center stack. And we will move on. Okay, so we've got all 4 of the screws on top of the stack. And like I said, depending on how you're going to run it, if you're going to run a 4-in-1 and an ESC, you're going to run the 4-in-1 on bottom and ESC on top. and you still get the isolation from it, or the dampening. And then if you're going to run an all-in-one ESC with the all-in-one flight controller, rather, with the ESCs on the arm, then you're going to just have the one on the stack. So I love that he included the dampening. So let's go ahead and let's put through our battery strap. You can do it after, but man, it's always so much easier to do it before. Half the time though that I do it, I forget to do it until after. This was my build. I would probably run maybe 2 straps on there. I would also put some foam on there for the battery so that you can get a really nice grip on it. And then from here we take the M3x6s. And that is it. That is the Hyperlite. Let's pull out a little bit here so you can really see it. This is the Hyperlite Floss 2. And just, after you get everything together, just give it another once over as far as tightening. Just make sure everything's really nice and secure. And so I'm excited to get this up in the air. All right, let's get a quick weight on this. I think it's, yeah, right at 72.8, 72.9 grams. So that's it, guys. That's the Hyperlite Floss 2. And thanks for hanging with me on this frame build. And, just make sure before you get it all done and fly, always just double check all the nuts and make sure they're really nice and tight. And you should be good. So thanks, guys, for hanging with me. You can check out my website where I do builds on xframesfpv.com. You can also check out and buy this frame. I think it comes out August 31st at pyrofliprc.com. Link will be in the description. And guys, thanks again, and I hope you have some time to fly.